Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I am Iris, and I am making an extra video for this week to open up a little bit more insight into some of the energies we're working with this week in August, and also to open up reflections on this time because it is a mighty, mighty time. And I was noting, I made a video on my Patreon realms about this, and I thought, no, I think that this needs to go out to the bigger world because there was a lot of comments on social media everywhere that I saw this week in August as we have this major kind of divine feminine energy as Venus conjuncts Jupiter. Then that Venus is going to go into a lovely trine with Juno and Vesta and Scorpio, and also with the North Node in Pisces. And part of that energy is also Venus square Ceres, who is in Aries and has just stationed retrograde. So this is all quite a lot of what we tend to refer to as the divine feminine energy, whether that's Venus or the asteroids or dwarf planet Ceres. And they're all very important in astrology, especially evolutionary astrology. And yet, there were some comments that things weren't tracking, that it was supposed to just be a beautiful day and everything was supposed to be blissful. And I wanted to trouble that a little bit because, on the one hand, when we're talking about the divine feminine energy, we have to be really careful not to view divine feminine, that language, the archetypes, and there's various archetypes and they're all different, not to view it through a conditioned patriarchal lens. And that's not easy because a lot of us have been taught this very rigid, strong binary between whether we say masculine and feminine, divine feminine and divine masculine. I want to hold that in my practice. Those are very different phrases. Divine masculine refers to this archetypal resonance that all of us embody, versus masculine energy refers to a very human created understanding of gender that is not simple. All of it has to do with patriarchy, whether we're talking about masculine energy, feminine, or how we can kind of be taught to view the lenses of divine masculine, divine feminine. And when we work with the divine feminine energies, like we are doing this week in evolutionary astrology, we are not working with pretty, blissful energies. That's a patriarchal understanding of femininity. I would implore you to feel into Venus as your core values, how your values want to go into how you show love to others, and how you show love for yourself. Were there any experiences that came up yesterday, whether they were entirely in your internal world or external world, yesterday or this week, it depends when you're watching this video, that gave you an opportunity to reflect on your values, on what you're ready to let go of, on things you might have been carrying around for or longing for, and on where you want to show some devoted care energy in your life. And those reflections can come up through difficult experiences. They can come up through quote unquote good experiences. They're just coming up. The astrology is just helping them to come up. And what I really wanted to emphasize is that we cannot separate anything that is happening right now from what's going on with the outer planets. And they are in a period of massive paradigm shifting and paradigm changing. And this is felt very personally, and it is rewriting the collective fabric of how we have gone about organizing human societies, purpose, direction. And that's big and it's massive and it's breakdown and it's rebirthing, and it's not really going to stop. It's going to shift, it's going to ebb and flow. We on our individual journeys are going to have changes in how we relate to it. But as long as we are watching and part of collectives, we are going to see these massive paradigms breaking down, and we're going to see the structures that be continuing to cling in to a strong grip on power. And yet, so much of the astrology is asking us to look to small community. It's asking us to look to the communities that we're part of, whether it's an online community like we're in right now, or it's in your local community, or it's in all the different communities that you're part of, because all the different communities let us access different parts of ourselves. Aquarius, Uranus, Aries, this is energy that's about our small communities and communities where we can show up and we do not have to hide the most nourishing, important, evolutionary parts of ourselves. And having those communities and leaning into those communities and those spaces, and again, they could be, how is your own ecosystem and nature a part of your community? Online places, everyone is different, and our needs are different, and how we enter community is different, and what the word community means is different. And that word gets used very loosely, and it's also part of this new spiritual media industry. I don't even want to go into that. But for you, what feels nourishing and a place where you can show up yourself? Because that's the astrology of this time. And this week, we do have a pouring out and in and through of divine feminine energy. But it's Vesta and Juno and Scorpio. There is not really anything about Scorpio that is gonna fit into that just put a pretty pink bow and sparkly on it, and here's your pretty feminine, divine feminine energy. That is not divine feminine energy. That is a constructed understanding of femininity that aligns with some people and doesn't with others. Scorpio as an archetype is about looking at what is real. It is about feeling what is real. It is about losing the boundaries of self and other and being in these deep waters of intimacy where so much can happen. And we can have experiences that feel like too much, and we can have experiences feel like just the right amount of that sweet surrender and intimacy and being with another being. And we can have experiences that feel not enough. But Scorpio feels everything, and it learns by experience. Scorpio does not learn through like a cognitive good and bad list. It learns through experience, and it's water and it's flowing. And we do not have a society that has taught us to fully understand and appreciate water energy. And that Scorpio energy this week is highlighted with Vesta, who is there to help us heal. And Vesta she is devotion, and she is grace, and she is the goddess, and she is sacred flame in the depths of ourself, healing the depths of ourself. Juno is a matriarch. Her history is harsh. She has been a victim, and she has victimized others. And in Scorpio, she's coming to terms with that. And she had a retrograde, and she's now direct, and she's with Vesta, and she's potentially even healing her own acceptance of her own story of being victimized and victimizing others, and learning how she wants to show up in intimate spaces and not do that. But again, it's learned experientially. And that is trining Venus in Cancer, who's just been conjunct Jupiter, who wants to bring our deep values into the core of heart-centered space. And that's it. And heart-centered space in a society that conditions us to keep performing, to keep doing things that make us look better and feel better and have more power, and this, I got very little to do with heart-centered space. Heart-centered space for Cancer just wants to feel, just wants to sidestep its way through emotions and safety and be tucked into nourishment and be nourishing others and getting nourished in return and discover the self and the sense of self through that safety and feeling and nourishment. It absolutely doesn't want to have to perform in a certain way. And Cancer, when it is being asked to perform in a certain way, can have a lot of struggle. And those energies are talking to the North Node in Pisces, who is asking us, demanding, North Node demands a little bit, to let go of control, to let go of those Virgo South Node tendencies to grasp at control. We are coming into eclipse season with a South Node very active in eclipse season, so that we can find a truer, more sacred path to service and devotion. And yet, Pisces lets go. It lets go of the projected path. It lets go and it responds in the moment because it is co-creative presence with divine mystery at its core. And watery energy also usually requires other ways of expressing, meaning making, arts, nature, any aesthetic intervention, sitting in emotion with people and not trying to interpret or understand, but just being in it, not going into the psychoanalytic interpretation and understanding. Water just wants to feel. And certain water energy, like Cancer, can really appreciate being able to feel with another person. Scorpio as well, in different ways. But they also require their own time to feel what we're feeling, because water can very easily pick up the emotions of others, and then that gets confused. And that's where we go into empath energy. So it's a lot. And yet what the divine feminine signifies is that there is a receptive honoring of presence, of being with what is here. That we do not have to go out, we do not have to perform. And ultimately, the fact that this week's energy is also happening during this massive paradigm shift, we can come into the language of the goddess awakening. We can come into the language of the goddess rising in our consciousness, awakening from a collective slumber, but she was never asleep on her own. But the power over ideologies so shifted our focus into a toxic masculine drive that is patriarchy, inserted into all other power structures, that we cannot but have internalized into our own fabric of selfhood and relationship. And so goddess consciousness rising is a rebirthing into something new that also has ancient wisdom. And that is in the outer planets. It's in the archetypes of the energy here. It's in Saturn coming into Aries, conjunct Neptune. And there's so many layers, but it is big. And we are in hard times. Any massive paradigm change is hard. It's massive breakdown. It is destructuring. And it is also gorgeous rebirthing. But it requires the gaze to be realigned. And that gaze archetypally is coming through with Uranus and Gemini. It's part of the soul gaze in Aquarius with Pluto. And it's massive unlearning. And yet when we're in this heightened evolutionary moment, which we're in right now, we can make huge jumps individually and collectively. And again, individually and showing up in our communities where we're able to show up and let go of having to perform the attachments to the old paradigms is going to be very important and essential. And it's not easy stuff. And then we get a beautiful water grand trine that is about healing, that is about integrity coming through, that is about destiny. But that doesn't mean it's easy. It wants to flow. And it's flowing during complex times. And so just being aware, open, and seeing where we flow. So hopefully there's some nugget in here that lands and resonates with you. And as we say, take what lands, leave the rest. And I am sending lots of love, and I'll see you soon. Be well.